Welcome! You're listening to Making Relationships Work. We're a company focused on women and their marriage. We lead and teach women just like you how to grow into and access, whenever you need to, your wise woman self. The part of you who is deeply connected to your purpose, your innate wisdom, and your husband and family. We teach women in marriages how to rebuild trust and connection, to work through conflicts no matter how deep, no matter how painful, and to lead your marriage to a place where the two of you experience marriage mastery. This podcast is about learning the systems and techniques that truly work to reconnect you back into your marriage so that you can experience the freedom that comes with a masterful marriage. Since this podcast is totally free, if you're getting tons of value and you want to support us and make sure that you get more of this good stuff, subscribe below and rate and review our podcast today. Now, on to the show. Hey there, women making marriages work. Hello, Making Relationships Work, Facebook and YouTube. How are we all? How are we doing? This is a check-in. This is a check-in from quarantine land in Australia, and it is one where our lives are still in flux, as I know yours are, and we're still waiting to see what's going to happen, where it's going to happen, who is it going to happen to, and all the while we look out our window and things seem the same, or we look into our days and although it's more narrow, it still has the rhythm and familiarity. And so it feels a bit eerie out there, I think, except you can see and feel the difference, the way that people move away from you as you're shopping, that social distancing thing, and the way that we wear gloves and masks when we're shopping, the way that we manage and carry our stress. And I think that's what I want to talk to you tonight, is about the extra load that this pandemic, this thing that's hiding in plain sight, that is seemingly something that we're hustling as a global community to find the vaccine for, to know how to treat the virus well so that it eliminates or becomes manageable, the way that measles, mumps, rubella, polio, smallpox, all of those that came before are now managed. And so the load is cumulative. And there's a cup analogy, and a beautiful leader in my team uses this. So Michelle, if you're watching, I was thinking of you when I thought of this cup. And the idea is that if you think about a cup being the level of daily stress that you can hold, and you think about what goes in that cup. It's like if you're a parent, if you're a wife, if you have those responsibilities in terms of the mental load that goes with those responsibilities, and then your work and your responsibilities to your families and friends, to your communities. And then you think about adding in your response to this pandemic, your load, your concern for your people, your concern for their welfare, your concern for their safety. And you look at what that does, is it takes what your normal cup of stress is, and it adds 20 to 50% more. And when we're looking and thinking about a cup of stress, what we know is that the only way to reduce stress is to reduce stress. And so that might mean a whole series of things. But before we go into solving that, let's talk about stress and the way that it often insidiously piles up, so that the cup, which felt manageable at 9 a.m., feels unmanageable at 3 p.m., 4 p.m., 7 p.m. And let's talk about why and how and what does it feel like in our body. Well, stress in our body is, by its very definition, a stress. So it's a negative weight. But we can't consider it to be an entirely negative thing, because we need a certain amount of stress to get up and get moving and get going. Stress is not a bad thing. It's just not good for us when there is too much of it, when there is not enough relief, when we don't have the antidotes to it, and when we can't find our way back to feeling peaceful, calm, connected, kind, leading from the heart, because that is a very different space from the tightness that is controlling and checking and avoiding and demanding and creating and needing to have it this way so you're safe. And all that does is wind you up even further. Perhaps you notice when you check into your body, when you're listening to me talk, that when I was talking about what it felt like to live in that heart-based leadership, felt open and flowing, like you were available to receive. And then the stress conversation made you feel tight and shoulders up and hands clenched and stomach clenched and knees clenched. And that, my friends, is the difference between a cup of stress with an appropriate amount in it and a cup of stress with too much stress in it. Because what we know is that when your cup of stress is full, you overflow, and you overflow onto the people around you. And you might overflow with rage or anger, frustration, disappointment, jealousy, pain, loss, grief. Yeah. And all of that's kind of normal, particularly in the context of a pandemic. However, when we're living in such tight confines, and if your marriage is under pressure, or even your family is under pressure, then one person overflowing sets a really hard tone. And so when we look at our cup, when we look at our sense of if we are too full and we overflow, and that overflow happens in a contained space with our husband and our children, then it contaminates them. Yeah, it contaminates them with stress. It contaminates them with a sense of disconnect, because when you're overflowing with stress, you can't connect from a heart space with them. And it also sets at the ecosystem of the family in a not balanced way. So it infiltrates, it compounds, which means that it gets stress from your kids, it gets stress from your husband, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And then there'll be some kind of blow up. Now, the problem with that is that if you're not managing your stress, and this is a thing that's happening to you a lot, if you can't manage it, because if you knew better, you'd do better, right? So if you can't manage it, the problem becomes, I bet that you probably can't repair it. And so we're layering cumulative stress in a cup that's overflowing, in a family that's contained, that can't shake it off and find their way back truly to not having been marked by that cup overflowing. And that's not just your cup, my love. That's also your husband's cup. That's your children's cup. That's the people in your world, in your family of origin. No, in your family unit, their cup. And so the greatest opportunity that you have is to look at your cup. How do you reduce that stress? What kinds of things do you need? And the reason you want to do it is that this is hard enough. In the state that I live in, which is in Australia, we have just found out that all of our next term of school, which is about 14 weeks away from now, has just been moved to being online. And that means that we're all home for the next 14 weeks. And we've already been at home for 4 or 5 weeks straight. So that's like 20 weeks we're coming into. And that's close to half a year at home. And so when I think about that and I extrapolate it out to everyone that's listening that has their equivalent, we're starting to see significant parts of our year going to be lived in this new and unfamiliar and scary way, because we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know when it's going to happen. We don't know what that's going to mean, and we don't know how that's going to impact us. All that we have is right now. And if our cup is overflowing, if our cup is stressful and it moves into our family, and we're together for 6 months in this space, What kind of legacy is that going to leave in your marriage, in the way your children remember this event? How will it shape them? And is it shaping them in a way that you can live with? Because we all have stress, and it is hard to look at the news. And so that might be one of the first solutions, which is you find a reputable news source and you skim it once a day, twice a day, morning and afternoon. So you know what you need to know, but you are not in it. You are not filled up by it. You are not consumed by it. Because in your little bubble, we need to make it where it's at least quite peaceful. And your beautiful body and nervous system and sense of safety and stress, this cup, will be astronomically charged in terms of adding stress every time you tune in to what's going on. That doesn't mean you don't need to know what's going on. That's not my message. But don't let yourself marinate in the stress of what's happening. Take reasonable precautions. Take very great precautions. But don't marinate in your stress. Don't allow it to creep up on you. Allow yourself to rest and recover. Allow yourself the bubbles of enjoyment throughout the day. Find the humor, find the beauty. If you need to feel better, go and watch on YouTube. There's a wonderful search that you can do that will make you feel better within minutes. And this is where you'll reduce your stress. Go and look up good deeds. Go and look up kind things people have done for others. Fill yourself up on that. Fill yourself up on the stuff that brings good energy in. Notice what you need to do. Fill yourself up on what is good for you, what is good for your family. And if you're finding you're needing some skills right now, watch the masterclass. If you're finding you need some support and some help and you're really serious about being a leader in this time for yourself and for your family, then feel free to book one of our limited spaces on my calendar, my team's calendar, and we will support you in that growth journey from where you are to where you want to go. We'll help you make a plan for that. But you need to be the person who is ready to do the change, because we have never had so many calls as we have right now. And so we are taking as many of those calls as we can, but we're giving the calls to the people who are hyper committed, because they're the ones who are going to actually make use of the time that we give. Yeah. And so your job is to notice where you are and to look at that cup full of stress and to reduce it. And your job is to do that all day, all night, all day, all night, because the way that you interact in your family will change based on how much stress is in that cup. And if you don't know how to reduce your stress, if it doesn't make sense to you, watch the masterclass. That's helpful. If you need more help than that, after you've watched the masterclass, feel free to book a call with us. We work with the ultra committed, the hyper committed. And so don't take a spot on our calendar if that's not you. If you're just searching for some information, that's not what we do. We do deep, deep transformation. And if you've been in this group long enough, you know that. And so book a call if you fit that criteria, because we want to talk with you. We want to help you. We want to know you. We want to help map where you are, map where you want to go. But most of all, we want you to be able to lead your family through this next 6 months, this next 12 months, this next 18 months, while we develop vaccines, while we stabilize the world before borders are reopened and trade resumes. We want you to be designing the experience your children, your husband, yourself has, even though the world is in turmoil. And that is completely possible for you. Not only possible, it is required of you. The world needs you to do this. And so if you don't know how to do it, start with the masterclass, book a call with us. If you feel the call to action from me, rise up, and let's go, because you better believe that that's what I'm doing. You better believe that's what my team is doing. We are here responding with leadership, kindness, love, strength, compassion, direct clarification on what needs to happen to lead through this moment of history. Make no mistake, we are creating right now. Make no mistake, this will be remembered. Your children, your husband will remember how you are during this time. How do you want to lead? Who do you want to be? What does that mean for you? What needs to change? What needs to grow? When are you going to commit to doing it? All the way in, commit, not partially commit and go back to your old way after you've stopped listening to this conversation. Seriously, when are you going to commit? So, masterclass, book a call, but only if you're serious. All right, my darlings, stay safe, clean hands, full hearts, manage the stress in your cup. Remember the legacy you are creating. Remember the people that are watching you, your children, your husband, your family, your friends. They are looking to you for leadership. And what are you giving them? Are you leading? Yes, let's lead. Let's lead from the heart. Let's lead with love. Let's lead with light. And let's lead a legacy that we can be proud of. I'll talk to you soon. Bye, darlings. Thank you for tuning into today's show. If you're feeling fired up and you're ready to grow and you want to know more about how to do that, here is what I want you to do now. I want you to watch my marriage masterclass. This masterclass will show you how my clients have turned their struggling marriages into thriving marriages, even without their husband's buy-in. How my clients have gone from cycles of poor communication, disconnect and loneliness to being teammates and soulmates with their husbands again, even after they've already tried everything. And the proven system my clients use to start transforming their marriages in minutes, not years, because life is too precious to waste one more minute in an unhappy and unfulfilling marriage. So if this is what you're looking for, I want you to click the link below and take a look at my masterclass.